CSGO Tradeups are the in-game gambling mechanism that allows players to exchange 10 items of a lower rarity into the item of a higher rarity. It is mainly presented to the public as a way to gamble and have fun, but it's been discovered that Tradeups can be actually profitable if you know what you're doing. Obviously, what I'm saying is nothing new, and there have been plenty of YouTubers who've made videos about it. There are even people who have their entire channels dedicated purely to showing profitable Tradeups. But there's a one common issue that I have with almost every single person that has ever spoken about it. My problem is that nobody has ever shared how much money can you actually make from it. And I don't mean how much profit you can make from a single trade up, but I just want to know what is a monthly salary of a person that does profitable trade ups. And yet no matter for how long I searched, I could not find the answer for this question. I'm obviously not expecting channels that make a trade up video from time to time to answer this question, but if you have your entire channel dedicated to profitable trade ups and you don't even know how much money can you make from it, then it kind of makes your channel pointless. Why would you ever make a channel promoting a certain side hustle if you don't even know whether you can outperform a minimum wage job? Showing the possible earnings from the side hustle that you're promoting is a vital information for anybody who is considering getting into it. Otherwise, nobody is going to treat it seriously. That's why profitable trade-ups are not considered to be a serious business model, but more as a fun way to get your first knife. What also might be happening is that some people just assume that it's not possible to make a living from it because nobody has ever done it before. But I personally refuse to believe that. I always believe that trade-ups had a lot of potential. At the end of the day, it's possible to achieve 20 to 30% profit margins with spammable trade-ups and sometimes even have 100% chance of winning. I really wanted to know how much money can you make from it if you put 10 hours every day for 30 days straight. But since nobody seems to know the answer for this question, I decided that I will answer myself. That's why I decided to sacrifice 30 days of my life just to do profitable trade-ups, to find out whether it is possible to make a living from CSGO trade-ups. Probably a lot of you wonder, how can you do a profitable trade-up and how is it possible that something that's supposed to be a gambling can be actually profitable? The thing is that obviously not every trade-up is profitable and the profitability of the trade-up mainly depends on the float of the items. So how can you find a trade-up that is profitable? There are sites that exist purely for the purpose of helping you to find those trade-ups, and one of them is TradeUp Spy, which I will be using throughout the challenge, and you can find the link to it in the pinned comment. This site allows you to put any 10 skins into a trade-up and it shows you the profitability of this trade up, but most importantly, it shows you what's the profitability if you sell your output on Steam, which is what I will be doing throughout the challenge. What I also mentioned is that profitability of the trade up depends on the float of the items, but what exactly does it mean? Well, whatever skin is unboxed from the case, the rarity of the item is decided by the sheer randomness. So whenever the item is unboxed, the game picks a random number between 0 to 1, and if it lands on the number between 0 to 0.07, the item is factory new. If the number lands between 0.07 to 0.15, then the item is minimal wear condition. If it lands between 0.15 to 0.38, then the item is field tested. If it lands between 0.38 to 0.45, then the item is well worn, and if it lands between 0.45 to 1, then item is battle scarred. Okay, but what does it have to do with trade-ups? Well, the condition of your outputs will be decided by the average float of your inputs. So theoretically, it is possible to put 9 field tested items into a trade-up, but with really good floats, and only 1 minimal wear item, and achieve an average float of a minimal wear item. It is also possible to achieve minimal wear average float by only putting field tested items. Let me show you how it's done. So as you can see, I have put 10 items with terrible floats into a trade up, and obviously it's not profitable because all of the outcomes are in field tested condition. But if I lower the float of my items to 0.26, then you can see that now the XM will be minimal wear, and because of that, profitability of the trade up went up. If I lower the float of my items even further down to 0.2, then you can see that now M4A4 will be minimal wear, and you can also see that Glock is on the margin of becoming minimal wear. So if I just lowered the float of one of my items by 1 decimal, you can see that even though I have put it only field test items, I am receiving only minimal wear items. And you might ask, why and how is that happening? The answer for that is float caps, which is a concept I don't really want to explain because I believe it's just too complicated and you don't really need to know why to do those trade-ups. All you need to understand is that some items cannot be battle scarred or factory new because they are capped. So because of that, the average float to get to each condition is different depending on the item, and let's keep it as simple as as that. I showed you this example to explain why low float items are crucial to do a profitable trade up, but naturally it creates another question that probably a lot of you might be asking right now, which is how can you obtain low floated items without overpaying for the floats? The first thing that is basically a necessity is to have an extension installed that shows you the float of an items that are listed on the Steam market, and I personally would recommend CSGO float extension, but CSGO Trader is just as fine. This will allow you to snipe low float items that are cheaply listed on the Steam market. But the truth is that tradeuppers obtain most of their low floated items through buy orders, and here's how it works. So you put the buy order on the items that you need for the trade up. Steam allows you to put buy orders up to 10x of your current balance, so just create buy orders until you reach this limit. Then you have to wait until you either run out of balance or your inventory will be full, as there is a limit that you can only have up to 1000 items in your CSGO inventory. Once your buy orders get fulfilled, you have to sell back all the bad floats and keep the good floats. But a lot of people mess up in this part, so let me explain it. Let's say that you found a trade up where you need field tested items with the average float of 0.2. Then a lot of people think that it means that you have to sell all the items that have a float above 0.2, but that's not necessary. You can keep the floats up to 0.24, because if you put 0.24 item and 0.16 item, then you are also getting 0.20 float average. This is what allows you to minimize your losses from selling back the high floats. The very common and reasonable question is, how much are you losing from selling back the bad floats? And the answer is that it's probably way less than you think. There's a concept about reselling on Steam that you need to understand, and it is called a resale value. It means how big of a difference there is between the buy order price and the lowest listing. If buy order price is very close to the lowest listing price, then it means that this item doesn't have resale value. And even if you find a really profitable trade up but items don't have resale value, then it's a good enough reason to not do this trade up at all. So you need to find profitable trade ups where items that you need to obtain also have a resale value. This will allow you to lose absolute minimum when selling back bad floats, and in some circumstances even profit from selling back, although it's pretty rare. Also, what you need to keep in mind is that when you are obtaining items through buy orders, you are getting them for a lower price than the calculator showed you. So this way you also make back for the losses from selling back the bad float. So basically you can assume that you're obtaining all the items at the market price, because even though you lose a little bit from selling back the bad floats, you also get items for a trade up at lower price. And I think it's fair to assume that this will even out. It really simplifies the process of tracking your profits. So once you sell back all the bad floats, you can start doing trade ups. Then just sell the outcomes and repeat the process. This is basically everything you need to know if you ever would like to try it yourself. Even though if some things might still be unclear, that's fine, don't worry. Everything will be more understandable if you see it implemented in the real scenarios. Before we start, let's set the rules for the challenge. The goal of this challenge was to make $700 in 30 days, because that's the minimum wage in my country. My starting balance for this challenge was $66, which is not a lot, but you need to keep in mind that this experiment was done back when I was still in high school, which was 2 years ago. And for the average high schooler from my country, $66 was a big money. I think it's also good to start with such a low balance, because it just shows you that everybody can start doing it, no matter how broke they are. So without further ado, let's start the challenge. I started off the challenge with an AK Slate trade up. And it is really important to mention that this challenge was happening back when Snakebite Collection was just introduced. And usually when new case is introduced, then there's a lot of opportunities to find good trade ups, because prices are always so messed up at the beginning of the case release. I managed to do an AK Slate trade up 8 times this day, and here are the results. Overall, from this session, I got 2 Deagles and 2 AK Slates, which is insanely good for 20% chance to win trade up. Just like that, I managed to profit $66.63 in my first day. The second day was pretty chill. And by pretty chill, I mean I was experimenting a lot by trying out different trade ups that I either found on YouTube or just find myself by putting random items into calculator. The most memorable one was this M4A4 Desert Space trade up, from which I got the worst item that lost me $16. But after that, I had another attempt to get M4A4 Desert Space, but I missed it again. And I got this XM, which lost me $8. Overall, I was down solid amount from this day, but then I decided to do an AK Slate factory new trade up, and I hit it first try, putting me back in profit of $6 from entire day. On day 3 I decided to run an experiment and do some cheap and no risk trade ups. I wanted to see how much I will be able to make if I spam those no risk trade ups for an entire day. At the end I managed to do it 36 times. I profited around $3.5 from entire day. To reach the goal, I needed to earn $23.33 per day or more, so I knew I had to switch the strategy if I wanted to earn as much as McDonald's employees. So on day 4, I decided to come back to the trade up that worked the best for me so far. And I'm obviously talking about AK Slate trade up. It was, to be honest, a perfect trade up because at the moment, as I said, Snakebite case was just released. So a lot of people were opening it, and therefore getting the low float milk spec items from Steam was really easy. So it was both profitable and spammable, which is perfect for a trade up. The only downside to it was that it was risky, but I didn't have any issues with hitting AK slates in the past, so it shouldn't be a problem, right? Attempt number 13. After missing AK Slate trade ups 20 times in a row, I lost majority of my balance and I had to redeposit another $50, which, as I said back then, it was a lot of money for me and I really didn't want to lose it. But at the same time, I had to continue chasing the AK Slate. It sounds as if I am an irresponsible gambler who is chasing his losses, but the thing is that it is a profitable trade up after all. So in the long term, I should always end up in profit. So I see no reason why I shouldn't continue chasing it. To end this day off, I set the buy orders for an AK Slate trade up inputs and I went to sleep. Day 4 was an absolute disaster, and at the end of the day I lost $110, and I was hoping I would make some part of it back tomorrow. I had high hopes for day 5 because hitting just one AK Slate would put me back on my starting balance from day 4. Naturally, after missing it so many times in a row, I had to hit it now because that's how statistics work, right?
Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy. You want to tell it to me?
That's how I lost my entire balance again, and I really didn't know what to do anymore. Overall, I missed AK Slate trade up 27 times in a row, and I really didn't want to redeposit because at this point I kind of lost hope that I would hit this trade up. But at the same time, it is a profitable risk to take, so why should I ever stop? With this logic, I convinced myself to redeposit another $50, which, I'm not even kidding, was the last money I had, which means that if I lose this, the challenge will be over, because I would have simply no more money to redeposit. So at day 6, the chase for an AK Slate continued. For the great start of a day, I missed it 3 times in a row, which now means that I have overall missed it 30 times in a row. At this point, missing AK Slate trade ups was part of my morning routine. I wake up, miss AK Slate trade ups, and then I have breakfast. That was my normal day. After selling back my drops, I had like $35 left. At this point, I probably should have lowered the stake and move on to do some cheap and low risk trade ups to restore my balance. But as a natural born gambler, I always chase my losses, and that's why instead of lowering the stake, I decided to increase the stake. I decided that I will do a final AK Slate trade up, but this time in the StatRec version. The trade up costs $30, which is basically an all-in, but there is a 10% chance that I make everything back. And I also told myself that if I hit the deagle, I would stop doing this trade up and move on to do something with a lower risk. So this definitely was my final attempt at hitting AK Slate. I could either win most of my money back or lose everything. And since there existed a chance of potentially getting my money back, I decided the risk is worth taking.
Damn!
And that's how day 6 ended. The beauty of trade ups is that you can never truly lose everything, because even if you miss the trade up, you will always get some item which has some value. So even though I missed the trade up, I still had some money from it. After selling it, I ended up having $13 in my Steam balance, and I decided to take a break from the challenge. At this point, the future of it was really unclear. After what happened, I had to reevaluate whether I even want to continue the challenge anymore. I genuinely had no more money left, so even if I wanted to restart a challenge, I would have to play with the $13 that I had left on Steam. Everything what just happened seemed so unfair, but ending the challenge right now and saying that it's not possible to make a living from TradeUp didn't sound right. I was completely lacking motivation to continue the challenge. The fire that was burning inside of me since day one has completely dwindled away, as getting everything back from $13 sounded like an impossible task. But then I discovered something that dropped big fat propane tank right into my ass cheeks, lighting the fire to the size twice as big as it was at the beginning. I was like a scientist who started screaming in the middle of the night because he just discovered a groundbreaking invention. I literally woke up in the middle of the night just to set the buy orders for the next day. After 3 days of break, I restarted the challenge with a completely new plan in mind. Do you remember my experiment from day 3? That was a day when I tried doing cheap and no-risk trade-ups, but I quickly gave up on it because I didn't make enough money from it. The reason why it didn't work was because I only did trade-ups from one collection, and it was this Italy collection trade-up. But during my break, I found a lot of different no-risk trade-ups, and I realized if I just increase the volume of trade-ups per day, then it is possible to reach my daily goal without taking any risk. The trade-ups that I found was this Safe House collection trade-up, this Dust 2 collection trade-up, Dust and Inferno mixed collection trade-up, the Bank collection trade-up, and 2 biggest juicers, which is this Prisma 2 collection trade-up and Revolver collection trade-up. My plan was to first make some money with industrial grade trade-ups and later start doing those juicy StatTrak milk spec trade-ups. After all the hopelessness that I felt while doing AK Slate trade-ups, I finally knew what to do. As you saw at the end of this montage, I did some no-risk restricted trade-ups, which is really hard to do. The reason why it is so hard to do is because the floats are really hard to get, and those items never have any resale value, so it's never worth putting buy orders on those items. But I found another way to do this. It's called chaining trade-ups. Chaining trade-ups is basically creating the low float items by yourself, and here's how it works. So this is a StatTrak milk spec trade-up from Fracture collection, and what's so special about it is that all of the no profit outcomes will have a really good float, and you can use them for this insanely profitable no risk trade-up. So you're making profit to create items that will guarantee you even more profit. Life is great, isn't it? So throughout days 22 to 30, I disconnected from no-risk industrial grade trade-ups, and now I was mainly doing chain trade-ups, and here are the results. Since I wanted day 30 to be kind of special, I have saved up some of my items to do a trade-up with them in the final day of a challenge, and here's how it went. By the end of this challenge, my Steam inventory was worth $140.96, which can be both good and bad depending on how you look at it. If we assume that challenge started after this bullshit with AK Slate, then that would mean that I have turned $13.56 into $140, which basically means that I have 10x'd my money in just 22 days, which is an insane return on investment. But if we compare my entire deposit with how much my inventory was worth at the time, then I actually lost money. I definitely prefer to consider this first version as an official result of the challenge, but that still doesn't answer the question from the title, which was the main reason why I did this challenge in the first place. As I said, I wanted to prove to everybody, but mostly to myself, that it is possible. That's why I decided that I will be doing CSGO Tradeups until I make $700 in 30 days. The story that I told you happened around 2 years ago, and now I finally know the answer for this question. So, can you make a living from CSGO Tradeups? Yes, you can. Month 7 of my trade-upping journey was the first month that I earned over $700 in just 30 days. And overall, I've made around $3,000 with CSGO Tradeups. That's basically my come-up story, and after I was done with Tradeups, I got into item trading, and now I am doing it full-time. At the moment of recording this, overall I've made around $70,000 with CSGO skins. Now that's definitely the story for another video. It's just really crazy to think that I never had to work at any real life job just because I started this silly challenge back in high school. If there's one thing that we can take away from this video, then it's that hard work will always be rewarded, regardless of how much bullshit is being thrown at you and how stupid is the activity that you're doing.